Okay, this is the first episode of Ghost Stories with J.J. Allen here. I'd like to thank you, Bill, for being here with us today. We're going to talk about ghosts a little bit and your experiences and the things that have happened to you in your lifetime. And I'll talk about some of mine. So that's it. So, basically, I have been interested in ghost stories and the supernatural since I was a child, because it happened to me when I was very small. It began when I was 4 or 5 years old. Mm-hmm. And this was in the early 70s, and I did not understand what was happening to me at all.
Yeah.
For real. I was like traumatized. And, these things were happening to me I grew up in Augusta County, about 9 miles from here, west of here, in a little town or a village called Buffalo Gap, Virginia. And we actually I lived in a log cabin that was built. It was registered in Augusta County, Virginia, to being built in 1720 by the German Quakers that had established themselves in this area. From Middlebrook, Virginia, and sometime in the late 50s or early 60s, it was brought from Middlebrook, Virginia, and reconstructed on the land that my my dad had bought back in this was the early, I'm guessing, okay, I don't know, 50s to 60s.
Yeah.
Because it had been somewhat of a Boy Scout camp at the time. And the owners of the Stanton News Leader, actually the guy who kind of, I guess he organized it or whatever.
Yeah.
Had just owned it and built it, and they bought it from him, I think in 65 or 66. I was born in 67. So, yeah, it was crazy. So that's the reason, that I have always been very, very interested in that, because it has affected my life so much.
Yeah.
But, Bill here is a vendor of mine, and he's a businessman, and we got the chit-chatting here a week or two ago, and I was like, hey, man, I'm getting ready to start this podcast because I just have to have projects and stuff like that, and this is something that I thought about doing many moons ago, and now I said, let's just do it. So We're doing it now. And you have some, what's the right word? You have some thoughts about your father as well as myself. We've kind of got that in common a little bit, So, and you had indicated that you had some ghostly encounters with your dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, throw it at us, man. What? Yeah, I want to hear everything. Of course.
Just to start off, my father and I have always had kind of a tumultuous relationship. He wasn't the easiest person to be around, and
right.
I've explained those stories to you, and he passed away in 2019.
Okay.
And we did not occupy the house. My mom stayed there until we were able to occupy the house with her. It took about another 2 years.
Is this the house that your dad and your mom
Yes,
lived
yeah,
in?
they lived in it since 1990.
Okay.
I was born in 89.
Right.
And so we got it renovated. We sold my townhouse. We moved in with Mom. And that was November of 21. And then I started having these encounters. I would have these dreams. And, you always remember your father in maybe a tire, maybe a shape. I always remember my father because he worked as a longshoreman, and he had this big yellow puffer jacket. Mm-hmm. And, he was never a Nike person, but he bought it at a thrift store, and he always had this puffer jacket in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So when I had these encounters, he would come to me in this puffer jacket.
You mean a dream, or this just an encounter?
It's just, I can't explain it. Like, I would go to bed, and he would be there, and it would always be raining or overcast. but I would open the door and he would come through the door and he'd say, "Get out of my house." And he'd just say it over and over, and I'd wake up in a cold sweat, like.
You mean your own father?
My own father, and
that you were living in his house and your mom's house.
Yeah.
And you think this was a dream, or
well, I know
some type of vision.
Yeah,
or?
I mean something, because it just repetitively happened, and my mom, was getting up there in age. When we moved in, she would have been 66, and she wanted to stay downstairs, so we renovated the den, and we lived in his room. We lived in the master bedroom, and I always felt like anytime life got a little too good, life got a little fun, things were going well.
Yeah.
That's when I'd have these encounters. And for 2 years, I would see him in these dreams or visions or whatever, and he would tell me to get out of his house, get out of his house.
Did he? I'm just going to interface here just for a second.
Sure.
It sounds strange that he would. Any father would say that, but I get it. I mean, coming from a dysfunctional family.
Sure.
I mean, I kind of get it, but I mean, he? Did he just not like you? Do you think? That's a hard question.
He was always hard on my brother, and I lost my brother in 2016. My brother was older than me. He was 5 years older than me. I'm 35, so my brother passed away in 2016 when he was 32, and then I took on the shape of my brother. So my dad was very hard on me after that. Somebody was never hard on me really that often because he had my brother to pick on.
Wow.
So when my brother passed away, he became very hard on me. And it wasn't just the visions. I felt like maybe he took the shape of a cardinal, because when I would work in his garage, this bird would come in and peck at me.
In real life?
In real life.
Well, I have heard it many a time that birds do actually come to people.
Yeah.
After someone's passed on, maybe a close person, that a bird will fly in or come. I've heard of stories where birds will fly into your face. I mean, something really abnormal. So was it kind of? And I've heard of cardinals.
And it would, if I was in the back of the garage, it would peck at the window. If I was in the garage where the garage door was, it would fly into the garage door and whiz past me, and it'd be like,
really?
What the heck? So I thought it was a one-off. Well, I came outside the next day, same thing, Like one day I was backing the truck into the garage, and this thing came and started pecking at the mirror. It was just always there.
How often did that happen?
I mean, I would work on the weekends because, my business would take up the majority of my time. So I was never there, but it was like every weekend, this bird.
Really?
And then when things got a little too good, visions, and we did.
I mean, like a little success in your business.
Yeah, you get a little success.
You
and
got
then,
a few $100 extra bucks this week.
Yeah, there you go.
We're doing well, and all of a sudden, I'm just going to ask.
Okay.
Do you think it came because he was like mad because you were being successful?
It's a possibility.
I mean, I've had that happen to me. That's the only reason I'm asking. It was a weird situation with my father.
Yeah.
As well. So in my circumstance, unfortunately, and it's a very hurtful thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm sorry it happened to you too.
Oh yeah.
I'm not joking about that. But it's like if he saw you were being successful, then he would put something down like, oh, you got a truck, well, or you got, whatever.
Yeah.
Or you got, well, I'm glad you're doing so well, kind of thing. And that's a very detrimental thing to happen to a young man. So here again, I'm sorry that did happen to you. It can be very heartfeltly hurtful.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue on. I'm sorry.
Well, and we never had a whole lot of communication the last year he lived. And then when he was dying, we visited him in the hospital every night, but he would be asleep. So we were never able to communicate. So when he did pass away, I mean, the last communication we would have had was before he went into the hospital.
Right.
But we cremated him and my mom put his ashes up on this bookshelf that we had in the living room. So after 2 years of having these visions, I don't know what made me think of this, but I mean, I always just told my mom, he's here. I feel him in this house. I feel his presence.
Right.
And it's got to be the ashes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
So, like the overthinker I am, my very good friend Mark lives in the mountains. He lives in Louisa.
Okay.
And he heard of a mountain in Shenandoah called Old Rag. And he found it was fitting that if we could dump his ashes anywhere, maybe it would bring my dad some kind of peace to release him in the ashes.
Did your dad like the mountains?
He did. He did. So as any underprivileged child in the 90s,
Yeah.
you either were going to the beach or you were going to the mountains. We never did extravagant vacations.
Right,
You were either scraping everything you had to rent like a fishing house in the Outer Banks, or, you could camp in the mountains. That was what we did my entire life because it was cheap. It was easy.
Right. Yeah.
And he always said, anytime there was struggle, I'm just going to leave and go to the mountains. He always said it. And I always wondered why he never moved to the mountains, but it's just something he always said. And it was like, maybe I'll carry him there. And this, I can find him peace. And ironically, this mountain that Mark found, it was going to be a very difficult spiritual hike. I mean, start to finish, this thing would be 10 miles.
Really?
And you would crawl over boulders. You would hike very steep things. I mean, it was a 2-person hike. He would lend his arm to me, and I would pull up on his arm. And,
Wow.
I've got my dad's ashes in this backpack, and we are hiking. And I kid you not, this is where it gets really strange, is as I'm carrying him up this hike and dealing with this struggle and sweating and struggling, I am reliving my struggles with him. It starts to become...
internalizing in your
a vision in its
mind.
own, because I'm carrying him on my back,
Right.
and I know this is the end, so it's starting to become emotional,
Right.
because I actually am getting rid of him. I am releasing him, and we started at 6:30 in the morning, and it took us about 3.5 hours to get to the summit, and like some pivotal moment, the wind picks up. I mean, when we get to the top of the mountain, trees are shaking, dust is flying around. I mean, it's getting pretty spooky. And Mark has been my best friend my entire life, and he decides he's going to hike around the side of this summit, if you can imagine just a little ledge, so that he can get a picture of me doing this.
Right.
And he does. I mean, I drop my backpack. I get out this, paper bag, and I pull out the ashes, and I have to pull a knife out and, cut the tie. Right. And I go to the edge of this, cliff where you can see everything. And as I throw his ashes, it literally, the wind picked up and it blew them around me. Really? It was a very crazy, emotional moment.
Wow.
And then it's not over, because you have the other 5 miles down.
Right.
And you don't want to go across the boulders again. So,
yeah.
You continue the emotional hike down the other side of the mountain.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So after you accomplished that task and you went back home, what happened?
I never had another dream again.
Really? Even since then?
He never came back to my dreams again. And just to make sure, one of my friends, she was mentioning spiritual cleaning, and we got sage.
Yeah.
She gave me a bundle of sage, and I lit it on, fire, and I went around the house, and because I was like, I don't want him to come back. And
yeah.
And I'm telling you, we never had another I had never had another vision again. And ironically, I never saw a cardinal again.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. It's very interesting. Have you had any other ghostly encounters that have plagued you a little bit, or?
No, not really. I mean, growing up, I always had fears as a child because we were in a very conflict-driven house, and I would always wake up in the middle of the night to feeling like something was crawling on me, whether it be a snake or a spider.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the lights off, I would feel like I was covered in something, and then I would turn the lights on, and nothing would be there. And I had those dreams mainly until I got into my mid-20s. And then for some reason, I kind of got over whatever I needed to get over there, and I never had those dreams again.
Really? Wow. Huh. Well, that's interesting about your father.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad was like he was a great craftsman, because I've been in the car business all my life pretty much.
Yeah.
And, he could rebuild anything, restore anything. And I mean, furniture or, he was an artist like me and all this stuff and everything. Just extremely talented guy. And, but now, and also I've been in therapy as well. Mm-hmm. I went through about 2-3 years to help me out.
Yeah.
And it really did. I'm glad for it. I think that anybody that is in conflict with their own self or they're feeling sad all the time or depressed about this, I think therapy is a wonderful thing. So I really do think that it's a very beneficial situation to, because this is the life you've got to live right now. And I think that you should try to enjoy the life that you have to your best ability.
Oh, yeah.
So I really commend you for that. And I remember when my father died, he died in 1992, August 3rd, 1992. And it was a very dramatic event. I was living on the coast of Virginia at the time in a place called Middlesex County. And he kind of basically wanted to go down there and retire and I don't know. And I was in between things in my life. And I was a little here again, lost again. I don't know what I was doing for a living at the time. I was in the insurance business and got out of that. And I had done some frozen food, truck route for a while, got out of that. And ended a bad relationship with a girlfriend for about 5 years, got out of that. So and I had been away from my dad for a while because our relationship was tough too. He was a very demanding guy. He was a very narcissistic guy. Yeah. So, basically I went down there with them. It was just me, my mom, my dad, and I'd gotten back into the car business a little bit, just detailing cars.
Yeah.
For a little shop down there. It was just a small town. And it was wide open spaces, and it was something new for me. The coast of Virginia is very flat, and we were up against the water, the bay, and the Rappahannock River. So been there about a year, somewhere about a year or so, about a year, and he'd had become a mild diabetic, and he had initially stated that, hey, there was one doctor in town, and he said, yeah, I'm feeling a little dizzy. And I said, hey, man, I said, please go to the doctor. I'm trying to be the advocate here. Please go to the doctor. I said, and he had gone back home. We lived in a campground at the time in a double wide modular.
Yeah.
And he was going back there to take a quick shower and to get ready. And he died. He died in the shower. He fell over and boom, that was it. And the neighbor had called me, and I ran. I was driving 85, 90 miles an hour to get there. It was only 10 miles away or something like that. And I got there when the first EMT guy got there. And I ran in the house and went back to the bathroom, and I looked at him, and I just knew right there he was gone. I mean, I could just tell from the ashen look. And so we got him down into the bedroom, and the EMT guys started working on him, and then more people came, and then, I just knew it then.
Yeah.
Went to the hospital, talked to the doctor real quick, and then pronounced him gone. So it was, of course, it was tough going to the funeral, going back up here in Stanton, and got him down and got him taken care of, and went back. And I was contemplating staying down there, because here again, I'm kind of in a crossroads in my life. I'm like, what am I going to do? And I was really, and I was traveling down into Hampton, Newport News area to initially do some interviews. I got hired, did get hired back with the one company that I'd been with before. And still, I'm like, I was hesitant.
Yeah.
And I remember one night I was sleeping in the bedroom that I was in, and my dad was a smoker. Okay. I'm sure that was a detriment, to his health a bit. And they just basically thought he had a huge heart attack, and boom, it was done.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was a dream until I woke up, but I'd gotten up, we had this wraparound kitchen bar counter thing. Mm-hmm. And there he was sitting at the edge of the couch like he normally did, cigarette smoldering in his hand. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he said to me, once you get past this insurance thing, you'll be okay. And all of a sudden, the light bulb went on in my head that he was dead. And I actually said this in this dream. Mm-hmm. I said, how in the hell are you here? And I started to move around the counter to go grab him or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was like this vortex of swirling light just sucked me back into this world.
Yeah.
And I woke up, and I could not believe it. Yeah. So I took that as a big sign, like I'm really listening here. And I told my mom, I said, hey, I want to get the hell out of here. I'm not happy here. And she was kind of the same contention at the time. And she had gotten a job up here back in Stanton or Fishersville or whatever. She used to do home health care.
Okay.
And she got a job with a client. And I remember the date. It was April 1st of... it must have been 93. Drove back, left everything there. Left it all, except we did have a travel trailer and some other big equipment. Mm-hmm. Basically hauled it all back up here, except for the modular home. We ended up selling that. We had 2 cars, ended up selling those, I think, or they just went with the whole thing. And I was so glad to get back up here, because this was home, And I couldn't believe how glad I was, how really grateful I was to come back here, at least to be in a community where I felt like, I belong here,
Yeah.
So that's why, I was kind of like, I'm glad that because you'd come from in that area, sort of down south, that you're feeling like this is home and this is good for you, because this is a pretty good area. If you're going to pick an area to live, I think in Virginia, I think that the Shenandoah Valley is a nice place.
Yeah.
Our town is just an older. It's a historic town, and it's not as fancy as Charlottesville or but it's still kind of a good area, good people, that kind of thing, And then of course. Later in time, I think I had, this is years and years later, I had another dream about him. I think it was a dream, I'm sure, that I we used to live. We had a big garage where I used to live in Buffalo Gap, Virginia, and he kind of like lived in his office. He was one of those guys who's solid. I don't know why he ever got married. You know, he's one of these, you know, kind of lone wolf kind of dudes. You know? And I remember in this dream that I saw him in the office, and it just boom, we're there. And he said to me in the dream, he said, keep writing. Just keep on writing. You got to keep writing. I'm a writer, you know, and I do video and other things, and you know, and now we're doing a podcast, which is kind of cool. But I've always been interested in the arts and writing and cinema and videography and, well, photography. I love photography and all that stuff, and the whole gambit of all that. And then we kind of walked out of the garage and we walked kind of down. It was kind of weird because it was kind of the same landscape that we were on.
Yeah.
Walking along, and there's a river in the back of our property, way down next to the mountain. And in this dream, the river was different, and it was like effervescent, and it kind of glowed like a beautiful ultramarine blue that like had light up on it. It's got like these cars you see with the lights up underneath them, and it kind of glowed. And I saw these fish that were like meandering through, and they were like sparkly and huge. And I said, I'm going to go fishing. And he said, no, you're not. He said, nope, you're not going to go fishing. He said, you can't. Not now. I woke up. Boom. And then I realized that, I don't know, how does this stuff work? You know, that's the reason for talking about the paranormal, talking about supernatural, talking about these ideas or sharing thoughts and ideas about this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because it hasn't just affected you and I, Bill. You know, it's
probably affected everybody.
It's you know, you listen on the internet and video and hell, ghost stories have been around forever. I'm not saying it was a ghost story, that dream, but it was like maybe it was like a visitation of sorts. You know, it was like, hey, we can talk for a minute or two, but you're not, you know, it's kind of like you cross a little bit of a thin veil between one life and another where he is there, you know. And I'd like to believe, you know, because while you're alive and while you're living, and we live that past with our parental unit, that maybe, you know, he was flawed. Maybe he had his reasons for being the way he was, and maybe it wasn't a great reason. My dad didn't have, I mean, my dad was like a Jekyll and Hyde dude. You know, he could be the most charismatic, oh my goodness, talkative, you know, create great conversation, charming, you know, the ladies liked him, and, you know, he was very, you know, enchanting with people. Yeah. And then he could be this guy that was like super freaking demanding. He treated my brother and I like freaking slaves. No joke. I mean, it was child abuse to a certain extent. Okay, you're shaking your head like,
I'm right there with you.
Okay, and the detrimental things that you would say, no, you don't want to do that, or no, that's stupid, or no, that's a bad idea, or, you know, instead of being encouraging like a father should be. So, you know, the one good thing I think that I got out of that is that when I had a son, 2 sons and a daughter, it was like, you know, I decided that I was not going to be that guy. You know, I was not going to be that way, you know, because if you're going to be consistent as a parent, you know, or try to be consistent the best you can in your personality, you know, or how you're going to treat your mate or your children. You want to be a bastard, just be this hard ass all the time, just because you can be, or you're just angry at them. I mean, take some responsibility. You know, that's my thing. But not only take responsibility monetarily, but also emotionally, for people, So I'm getting at something, but I'd like to think that with him being on the other side, that you get a chance to review who you were, what you were doing in this life, and, hopefully learn or, I don't know, get a chance to change maybe if you come back. I happen to be one of those that think that people come back, because I've got some really strange memories of me not being me.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that?
My mom always told me I was kind of an old soul, so I was always wondering if, maybe that's a possibility. Because sometimes it's strange when you look back at your siblings that, passed away, how different they are from you. So, and it's kind of weird coming from the same, straw, all being family, but not really feeling like family,
Yeah. And then, I've had a lot of strange experiences. And that's the reason I've actually sought some counseling.
Yeah.
I have sought some spiritual advisement because experience remembering simultaneous alternate lives that I live.
Yeah.
And this didn't start happening to me until I started having recollections of it I'm guessing about 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the oddest, I'm going to call it a dream, is that in this dream I was in this large house with French doors in the back, and I'm not a fancy guy. I'm not. I'm kind of a simplistic guy that I just like things to work well and be clean or whatever, but I'm not a fancy kind of guy. But I was in this beautiful foyer, and I paint. I'm an artist as well, so I was painting this. I was working on this piece of art, and actually there was this beautiful classical music, kind of maybe a little blues or a little jazz kind of in the background, and I was just as content as I could be, brother. And I mean content, like serene. And I'm not a serene kind of guy. I'm like, I'm always thinking about 10 million things at one time.
Sure.
And kind of in the dream, I kind of felt like I was dead. That I was just dead. Yeah. And, man, I was content with being dead. It was cool. I mean, it sounds really strange, but it felt really cool. I mean, I was just the reason it was cool is I was just so content. I mean, I was just like,
yeah,
everything's good. Everything's solid. Everything's real. Everything feels like life again. It feels, but then something came to me. Something in this house came up to me, and it was like something, like not a person, but it was like a review. And it said, what happened when you did this? So then I walked out, and the house expanded out, and there was this huge cage, like a cage full of furniture and stuff. And I said, yeah, that was back when I was with another woman, previous relationship. And I don't want to say her name, but anyway, I said, yeah, that one didn't work out. I mean, that was just a definite statement on my part. I mean, I said that didn't work out. And then it translated out to like I was experiencing what I had lived before. And the oddest thing about that is that I recalled the other apartments, so the other little homes, the other little, when I'm single. And I remembered it. This one apartment distinctly, I remembered, I really liked that place. It was a little house, it was an apartment, and I remember my typewriter, and I was typing, and this was in the olden days. I mean, in the 80s or whatever.
Sure.
Or early 90s. And then there was another apartment, and then there was another one. And it was just like, when I came back out of it, and I woke back up, and I allowed myself to think about this. It was like, I didn't live there in this life. I did not live there in those places. But while I was in the dream, and actually I can still remember the dream today, it was like so personal to me that it did happen.
Yeah.
But where did it happen? It was like, so I've come to kind of understand, sort of, and I'm going to go a little deep here.
Okay.
You cool with deep?
No, I'm good with it.
You good with that? Okay. Is that through these spiritual studies that I've been doing, and through talking to people that are higher levels than I am in this psychic ability and all this stuff, that I came to this conclusion that, and it's a proven scientific fact, that all of time, all of everything, basically happens at one time. Boom. Everything that was created is created. Everything that has happened is essentially still happening. The present today is happening. The future is happening. And all this. So it's kind of like we are like these little conduit units that run through a reality that I either think we consistently manifest on our own. You know?
Yeah.
Just like 2 weeks ago, I had an epiphany. I said, I'm going to start a podcast about ghost stories. Boom. 2 weeks ago. Driving on Route 252.
Yeah.
Going for a long drive. Thinking about shit, you know? 2 weeks ahead in the future, because I had that epiphany, you and I are sitting here right now having this conversation. Because I foresaw this event that is happening right now. I made it happen. I put the gear back together. I got the lights up. I talked to you. You know, we cleaned up the office. We got all this stuff done. I've got the equipment going. Boom. Here we are. Because I manifested it. I made it happen in this timeline reality scape that I desire to be on.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm doing, and I have been doing, is that I've been they call it traveling, and like at nighttime, and I will go to, and I don't know how I'm doing it, and that's what I'm researching now.
Yeah.
Is that I'm visiting other alternate situations that I am living at the same time that I'm living this one. This is like a radio channel, you know, dial 104.3, and then if I'm traveling at night, I'm going to 104.2 or 104.1. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, that's the thing that's intriguing the living hell out of me.
Yeah.
And the other really weird thing I'm going to say to the camera right here and to you is that 2 weeks ago, well, I do go see a lady, okay?
Yeah.
That's higher in understanding. I mean, she talks to more people than I talk to, okay? Or whatever.
Yeah.
And I asked her quite specifically, because I'm a specific guy. I'm like, hey, why am I experiencing this? Of what reason let's say I'm in control, or let's say something else is in control, a higher power of some sort.
Yeah.
Why am I experiencing this? And she kind of turned her head. She's an older lady. She turned her head, and she kind of can talk to evidently guides of mine or these advisors of mine or something. And she said, because, you know, I am supposed to talk about this stuff because other people need to hear it. so I'm kind of throwing this out a little early in this situation that I'm experiencing some really strange stuff with alternate realities and either dreams or visions or whatnot. And it's been going on for years.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why. I have no clue why. But then I had another therapist, and I was like, "Hey, you think I'm like going crazy for real?" You know, I'm a realist. I'm a guy that's like, "Hey, it is what it is. I'm finally losing my gourd after all this stress and living all these years and trying to keep the life together that I know is together. Am I finally slipping and losing it?" She said, "Nah." And the reason being is I can go through my daily day-to-day activities. I can run this business. I can make decisions. I can do this and do that. And okay, we're solid. We're good. The rent's paid and the lights are on. And I'm like, okay, all right, I guess I got it going on, you know, because you don't have anything to mirror your life to. You know, that's why it's so nice to talk to someone else and go, "You think I'm nuts? You know, you think I'm okay?" Or, well, I don't know.
Well, you're identifying the journey. Don't you think that's funny, you know, that a guy that would normally just be in Virginia Beach for the rest of his life where he did live is, you know, now up here, you know, talking to another guy that's experienced the same thing.
So
you know?
Basically, like I was talking about manifestation, is that, you know, you manifested this reality as well.
Yeah.
So what I've kind of come to understand, and maybe this is what I'm supposed to be talking about. I don't know. I don't have the answers.
Yeah.
I'm clueless. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? But thus, then this epiphany happened, and the podcast happened, and this is happening, and we're talking about this subject matter today. And in time, once I edit this down and it goes out on the internet and people see it, then, you know, basically maybe other people will call in, or they will, you know, become a guest, or they will, you know, go to the website, or they're going to go wherever, and maybe we can figure the answer out, because I don't have the total answer.
Oh, somebody might, you know.
But the reason I keep going back to this lady is because she has told me a few things, and I'm very skeptical. I mean, you know, I have, you know, I have abilities myself that I read people extremely well, but this lady has said a couple things that I hate to admit has been spot on with me.
Yeah.
I never ask about me. I don't ask about, oh, what's my future? I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I want to live my life.
Yeah.
I want to do it fairly, you know, because I you know, not that I'm the saint. I'm not a saint at all. I mean, I've made so many mistakes in my life, you know, but the only thing I try not to do now in my latter years is I try not to emotionally hurt people unless, you know, I have to, which sometimes you do. But anyway, you know, I try to be fair with people, you know, because I think that, you know, we come into this world with integrity. Well, some of us do, some of us don't. But I try to think of myself as a man of integrity and morality, you know, and I think you have the same qualities, you know, because you can identify these bad things that are happening, you know, in your life. And I mean, this doesn't feel good, you know, when you're being denigrated by a parent, it doesn't feel good. You know that.
Yeah.
You just know it automatically. Even when you're a kid, you're like, this is wrong, you know? So I don't know, man, but I do want to invite others that want to join this podcast or call. I'm going to have a situation, which I've already got the number, and I'm going to announce it here in a little bit, but I've got a number where you guys can call in and actually talk to me. If I don't have a guest, we'll just do callers or whatnot.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've got to build up the program to get to that.
Oh, sure.
To that situation, you know. But you say your wife as well she's from Russia, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've always been really intrigued with any kind of culture. Other cultures than here, you know, don't always have to be about, you know, the Appalachian Mountains or Shenandoah Valley. But I love to hear stories from other parts of the world as well. And you say she's got a few? Maybe?
Oh, she has a ton of stories. Yeah.
Really?
She couldn't make it today. My son isn't feeling so well.
I know.
Yeah.
So, well, he's getting some teeth in. So
that's probably good. The great part about your show, though, is people being able to, I mean, it's not just education for them. Maybe it's education for us
man,
because
it's
using
me.
this spiritual direction
I want to,
you know?
I need that feedback because I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Because I am one guy that does not have all the answers. I do not, and I don't pretend to.
Well, and it's really cool because us as humans, as we take these experiences, we just place them in a bag. We carry them with us.
Yeah.
But be able to add meaning to that experience, that's got to be one of the greatest life's pleasures because it's like you just feel validated. You feel really good to know that experience meant something and that's why it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like the dream of my father, that meant something. And a dream totally changed my life. I don't know what I would have done down there, but it would have been a different life. I would probably be a different person. And I don't know, man. That's the weirdness of it. It's like just, stopping a street corner and you're like, well, maybe I should go left or right, or maybe, somebody, you're not paying attention to that bus streaming through, and somebody grabs the back of your jacket and pulls you out, and you're like, whoa. Stuff like that. I do pay a lot of attention to, like, signs or things that are kind of coming your way a little bit. I'm like, I don't know. And then plus, you get this inner feeling about things, I don't know if you've ever gotten that before, but I get like, I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea. Let's not go. It's weird. So it's all good with that. So, but anyway, I don't know where are we at on time here. I don't know how long we've gone, but we've gone a pretty good stretch, I guess. But anyway, you got anything else to add, Bill? You good? Are you?
No, I mean, it felt really good to talk about it. It's
good.
not something I bring out often.
No, I appreciate you
but
sharing with the world because there's no we're all open people. At least I like to be because I do find it kind of fascinating, and I have a little I don't know compassion is the right word for you and me. With the rough father situation, and I hope, and I think I'm feeling it right, is that he's feeling good and he's in a better place and he's okay and he's not got bad health issues anymore. And I wish the best for both of our fathers.
No, that's something that was very and fortunate. 8 or so years, actually 7 or so years before he passed away, 2012, I started grief counseling for somebody that never passed away because he didn't pass away, but us being at odds put me in a position where I had to choose mental sanity over being his son because it was so difficult being in his life. But it kind of it educates you,
You're not honestly went through almost the same kind of scenario. I had to leave my father because it was so bad.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to my father for an entire year once because the psychological abuse was so bad that at 21 I was beginning to have panic attacks.
I mean, narcissism will eat you alive.
I mean,
really
because you're supposed to love your father.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like they use your love against you to control you.
Yeah.
And man, that is the worst in my opinion. So I don't know, but
you try not to talk about those things. Now that I have kids, I made it a point when I spoke for his eulogy, that I would identify the bad, but I would try to remember the good and that light for my kids, that, I'm not really going to bring that out. They don't really need to know those things,
I totally agree with you on that,
but I can parent in a certain direction to break that generational curse because, I want to build my children up. I don't want them to go through what I went through.
Same with me. No joke. It was a tough road. And, so hopefully that's all gone and it's moved on and it's a change of cycle. I think.
And the great thing about life is now you're on another adventure, so now, my struggle of making it up here, now I'm in, the valley, and
right.
now you're on to the next adventure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, I think we're going to cut it off here.
Okay.
Thank you again, Bill, for coming.
No, I truly appreciate you bringing me
conversation.
on here. Yeah.
The new number that we're going to have for you guys to call in is going to be area code 540-487-9037. So in time to come, we're looking at doing the actual taping every Sunday starting at 4 p.m. unless we change it. This information will also be on the website, which is JJALLEN ghoststories.com. So reach out to us there. We'll have a form where you can fill it out or comment or get a hold of us with all that. So greatly appreciate you guys listening and taking your time on this podcast. Really appreciate it, and we will see you on the other side.